guys, we got my brother Doug with me today. Doug and I do coffees every Wednesday, and so we have good conversations on Wednesdays, and we do a little Bible study on Thursdays with the boys. And Doug and I have been brothers now for 22, 23 years.
Okay. Let's see. I was 24.
Okay.
You were what, 9?
9 years old. Which that, people are like, well, you're brothers. What do you mean? You've only been brothers for 23 years or 22 years. How old are we? Gosh. I'm not, 9's 23 years.
If we were to jump in the Doug and Will way back time machine.
The DeLorean.
Yeah, jump in the DeLorean. The first things that I think about is I was working at A.G. Edwards & Sons, which is an investment firm, and there was a guy by the name of Mike, and I really admired Mike. He was just cool. And Mike came by my office one day, and he said to me, Doug, you should be a big brother. And I said, what's that? and he went on to tell me about his experience with Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Indianapolis. And that's where this idea for me was really created, is from my friend Mike, who I worked with. I give him a lot of credit for that. Mm-hmm. But, Will and I have been brothers. We decided that we're going to be brothers. Mm-hmm. Early on, we made the decision not to introduce each other as, hey, this is my little brother Will, or this is my big brother Doug. No, this is my brother Will. This is my brother Doug. And one of the greatest joys I still get out of this is when we introduce each other and someone says, oh, yeah, I see the resemblance, instead of saying, oh, Will, is he your dad? When they say, oh, I see the resemblance. And that happened to us just this week. You weren't there, but we were hanging out together, okay. and a friend of ours said, you know what, I see the resemblance.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And so I love it when people say that. And here's what I think about that now, Will. When I think about that today, oh, I see the resemblance. What I think about is they see the joy in your heart. Mm-hmm. They see the joy in mine. Yeah. And they know that we have that in common. Mm-hmm. And so that's a great compliment. I mean, someone might be saying some type of like physical feature, but I think deep down what they're really saying is, hey, I know the joy of Will, and I can see that in you too. And so that's just a big compliment. But I've been excited to share this story with you on your podcast, and just even the name of your podcast, Legacy Minds. I'm big on words, and there's a difference between your brain and your mind. If you called this Legacy Brains, it just doesn't have that same ring to it, number one. But my brain, like everybody else, like my fingers, that's just part of me that's going to go dead someday. Mm-hmm. But my mind is different, and you can't put a mind underneath a microscope. And so the Legacy Minds, it's getting down to the important things in life. And family is one of those important things where we have chosen to be brothers, which is pretty wild. Do you ever get to choose your brother? Do you ever get to pick out your brother? But in a sense, we did.
Yeah, it's a choice to make. I mean, looking back on the family that I have around me now, really none of it's blood. All of my family, my brothers, are not blood.
Well, and you think back to when you were 9. It'd be interesting what your mom would say. Like, why did she sign up for Big Brothers, Big Sisters? She had to have courage to do that. Mm-hmm. She saw something in you that inspired her to want to sign up. Yeah. And so none of this would have happened without Nancy. And so, Nancy, cheers to you. Thank you.
Shout out to Nancy.
Yeah, shout out to Nancy. But it is really cool to be your brother. Mm-hmm. And it was really cool to be your brother when you were 9 because, man, when I look back on your childhood, which I can see, you lived, but I can see, like, a lot of the same characteristics that you have today, you had back then. And it was an energy, it was a zip to do things big.
Yeah.
And you've been doing things big this year. You've been doing things big for several years. And that's just been a constant byproduct of who you are.
Yeah. It's been fun to be your brother too. See you go from A.G. Edwards to Gimbal Financial and having a family, and man, it's been cool. It's been so cool too. Like, you've been able to see, I've seen you start your family.
That's right.
And you've seen me start my family.
Yeah.
It's been really cool.
You knew me before Caroline and I got married.
Yeah. That's a long time ago now.
Pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool. So there you have it. I mean, the secret is out of the bag for all your podcast listeners.
We haven't shared that story with a ton of people either.
No, and I love coming into the gym, into Legacy, and I'm working out, and somebody will come up to me and they'll say, now you're Will's brother, right? And I'm like, you got it. And so now they know. They know.
They know the truth behind the story.
Yeah, and I hope people take courage with it, because volunteerism is a way to green light a ton of adventures.
Yeah.
And through volunteerism, you'll probably have to put yourself out there a little bit, but the return on investment is really strong. And I don't know if people, mainly because of technology, if they even volunteer like they did in the past, but if there are things out there that stir your heart or that you're easily stoked about, and there's a way to volunteer, there's a path for you to volunteer, then I say go for it. Even if that organization changes over time, which we've experienced with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But even if that changes, your reason for doing it is probably still there or even enhanced.
Yeah.
And so the idea of volunteerism, just giving yourself up for something bigger than who you could be on your own, man, I just encourage all your listeners to go for it.
Yeah. One thing that is so cool about the way you approach being a big brother too is we met some big brothers at what was that, a few years ago?
Yeah, we've gone to a few events that they've had to honor big brothers and little brothers.
Well, and it was cool how we got reintroduced to Big Brothers, because why don't you tell that story? Because that.
Well, really, we had someone reach out, and this person, if we're talking about the same thing, this person was a representative of Big Brothers, and they wanted to know more of our story, because we had been together for so long, and so
but not necessarily in the program.
No,
we kind of, I mean, after a couple of years, we really weren't in the program per se anymore.
And you graduate out.
Yeah,
you graduate out at what, 18?
Yeah, so
we had a ceremony.
That ceremony at the end of high school.
Yeah.
And before that, we really hadn't done much with the organization up until that point.
They gave great structure as far as expectation.
Yeah.
And they gave great support from me as a big brother. I'm sure they gave great support to your mom.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. But when you graduated, it's kind of like, okay, high fives. Yeah. That was great. But Will and I just chose to keep it going. And we chose to keep it going, not even really thinking about it, because, again, the decision we made was, hey, you're my brother. It wasn't, hey, we know each other through the program. Right. It was more than a program. Yeah. It was a relationship. And when you define something with a relationship, there's like eternal consequences to it. You're joined. and so that's that was really the catalyst to our relationship being successful, was the choice of saying, hey, I'm with you, and you saying, hey, you're with me.
Yeah.
And so that's what's made this easy.
Yeah. So tell that story about how we how you kind of found out what Big Brothers was looking for in this, and then they were like, oh my gosh, just it worked out perfently.
What? Help me. What are you talking about?
Well, with Cassidy.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. Yeah, that's who I was thinking of when she reached back out to me. Is there something specific you're looking for?
Well, the story itself, I think, is just it's in my opinion, that's divine planning, right? Like, how else would that have happened? You know,
Right.
So I just think the way that happened, because we had been out of the program for 10 years.
Yeah.
At that point, more like officially graduated out of the program, right? And there's not many people that make it the distance.
No.
There's one other pair that has been together longer, and other than that, I don't know when the next one is.
Yeah, and people ask me about that all the time when I'm talking about our story from a big brothers, big sisters perspective. Like even my father-in-law, he was a big brother for a short time period. And I'm a huge believer in just the unquantifiable richness of life. And so even for my father-in-law, who was a big brother for just a short time period, he's 78 years old, and he'll still talk about his little brother.
Yeah.
And he'll say things like, I'm wondering how he's doing, or, and so just the idea of someone caring, someone thinking of you, man, it goes a long way. And so if you're listening and you've been a big brother or a big sister, and say that relationship didn't work out quite as beautifully as ours will, that had huge purpose. That decision that you made, the decision that your little made at that time, it has huge benefits down the road because it's part of your story.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think what made it work so well between you and I is when you came into my life, you didn't come in to try to be a mentor or a father figure, or you just came into it as, I'm gonna be your brother. Yeah. I'm gonna walk by your side through life, and we're gonna do life together. And through that, I don't know if I've told you this enough, but you have been a massive influence in my life and in the direction I went. Some would say without you, I may be in jail, which is a possibility.
No,
but
that's not true.
But that was I think what was so cool about it is you weren't telling me how to live life. You weren't trying.
I probably did a couple times.
What's funny about that is I really don't think you ever did. It was because what I remember is through life and through going through situations and coming to you for some guidance and whatnot. It was asking me questions that led me to the answer, or that helped me find the answer on my own. And so it never once, maybe you did, but like it didn't feel like that.
That's
right?
good. Yeah.
So that's what I think made that work so well, because me, I wanted a father figure. I wanted a brother around, because I didn't have that. But some kids, they may have a resentment towards a father figure. They may go, I want to be with my daddy, but my dad's not around. And so I don't need a dad to replace them, and I could see that playing into how, some relationships don't work out very well. But that's what I think worked so well for us, was you just came in to be exactly what it says, a big brother. Right?
In a sense, it's kind of like what we're doing life now. We're just doing life together.
Yeah.
And that's what we started doing when I was 24 and you were 9.
Yeah.
Is we just started doing life together.
Yeah.
Were there a couple times where I thought, man, I wonder what it's like to be a dad? I mean, what does Will need from me as a man? But those were probably just temptations. They sounded good, but what was really needed was just to walk alongside of each other and do life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's exactly what we were doing. And coming down to it now, there were times where we were more distant, right? There were times where, and that would be an encouragement to people that maybe have been big brothers in the past that haven't talked to their little in 5-10 years.
Right.
Maybe reach back out, see where they're at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when we did that, when you started having kids, there was some distance. I was at the end of high school. I was doing my thing. You going to college, and you were having kids and doing the dad thing and building a career. And we didn't talk a ton, but we'd touch base probably once a month or so. Yep. And then when I started working for Tom James was when we started grabbing coffee every week. And that's now been a 4-year, 5-year thing.
One of the most exciting times in our relationship was when you started to really dig deep on who am I and what am I about? And you started to really launch your creative genius
Is that what you want to call it?
of sales, of working hard for people, wanting to give people a premium experience. And so when you started to approach life and unlock that world view, I was attracted to it. I was like, oh, I can't believe Will is speaking my language. And he's doing it with a lot of energy, and he's doing it with a lot of seemingly like, hey, I'm taking risk to better our lives, and hey, I wanted to be a part of that. Who doesn't want to be a part of that? And so that made it easy because you and I started to really see things kind of man to man, and walking through life, providing for a family, taking risk, daring.
Yeah.
Doing things that only people dream about.
Right.
And so when we started to have those things in common, that just elevated the relationship to a whole new level.
Yeah. So what do you think, how did being a big brother in your early 20s impact your life? And maybe because I mean you're not an adult at 25 or 20. When do you say 24? 25?
I think it's 24.
24. You're not an adult at 24. Let's be real. You're really not an adult until you're 30. So as you're at the tail end of your development as a man, right? I shouldn't say tail end, but you get what I mean. Of growing up, right? Yeah. How do you feel like that impacted your growth as a man?
Well, it was serious. It was really serious. I can think of a time, we'll joke about this from time to time, but you and I were playing darts, and I threw a dart and it bounced off and hit your eyeball. And
I think it just went straight to my eyeball.
And it was not good. And you have moments like that where I think, oh my gosh, I am responsible for Will.
Right.
And I want to be responsible for Will, and I didn't handle that very responsibly. Now, accidents happen, and that was part of it. But when it goes wrong, it causes you to dig a little deeper and say, hey, what's going on here? And really, that was one of those moments where I thought, Will is placed in my care. I'm not just walking alongside him. This is bigger than that. And so that was an example of more like kind of like, hey, I'm responsible for Will, not just his physical being, but I'm responsible for your emotional, your spiritual, you developing your worldview. And all this was banging around in my head when I was 24, 25, 26, 27 years old. We didn't start having kids till we were 30.
Yeah.
And so there were several years in there where I was seeing you develop through your tween teen years, and I began to think, hey, what does this look like on a deeper level?
Yeah.
But as far as those decisions in my 20s, I was doing big things in my 20s anyway, because I had an idea of what was important to me.
Yeah.
And relationships have always been very important, and so it was kind of just elevating.
How has your faith played into life and your development as well?
It's the best adventure you could ever go on. I've been on some awesome adventures in my life. I don't know how many motorcycles I've owned, stuff like that. Traveling adventures. I've always been on quests, but there's no better quest than walking down a path that you can't really see, but you trust it anyway. That's how I would describe faith.
It's a good definition of it. So here we are. You're how old now?
48.
48.
Be 48 next month.
Woo. 32. 16 years apart. I've seen your sons grow up. And LJ, your oldest son, was the same age apart as you and I were.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? Seen life develop. You're a business owner. Tell us more about that.
Well, it was a dream to be a part of a business and be a part of a small business. I come from a bloodline of business people, so I've always admired it. as far as I can go back, I think about my great-grandma. And my great-grandma, she started a beauty school in Muncie, Indiana. And the beauty school, the idea behind it was she wanted to give an opportunity for women to develop a skill set that can turn into a career that can help provide for their families. And this was like in the 30s, okay? And so here she is, she takes this risk and she develops this school, and people come to get a skill set, and people also came to get a cheap haircut. And so the beauty school was a real pillar in our community in Muncie for several years, and now I'm really proud. I mean, my cousin Brian owns and runs that today, and he's doing a great job. He's doing a great job. And so the idea of business ownership or entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial, those types of concepts have always just been a part of my worldview. And I've loved being around it. And so since I was a little kid, I've dreamt about owning a business. And for me, thankfully, I got partnered up with my good friend Keith, and he has given me so many awesome opportunities just to be myself and do my thing, and go alongside of it with me.
So what's your guys' view on how you do business? Because this is something that I find so cool, and it's been very helpful in my life. And you know, when I've asked you for advice on how to handle a certain financial situation or something like that, and when I go to introduce people, to you, when I explain how you guys do, I don't explain it that well, but it's, in my opinion, you guys are just trying to help people live their most full and abundant lives, but focused on bigger things than just money or just
I think
having the things.
So capitalism is part of my worldview. It's I think capitalism, is it perfect? No,
right.
But it's probably the best thing we've got. And so capitalism has it's been interesting for me to watch as a professional. I got into the business in 1998, and I think profits can trick people sometimes. And Keith and I, we've had this vision that if we can have one more dollar than expenses, then we're doing pretty well. That's the secret, is we don't have any type of growth goals. We don't have a trajectory we're trying to hit by 12/31 or by 9/30. And so just one more dollar than expenses. What does that allow us to do? That allows us to focus on the relationships and on the lives. That allows us to hone in on the things that we're good at, and tighten the scope down so that we can see clearly what it is we're aiming at. And so the profits don't really get in the way.
Right.
And because we have enough and then some to do the things that we want to do or things we need to do, we're able to dream. We're able to say no to opportunities that aren't really that great, and we're able to say yes to the excellent ones. And so that's a key principle: yes to the excellent, no to the good. And what that tends to do is that creates the type of business that you want to wake up for and get into the office every day.
Right. How does that translate over to clients and advising them on life, on business, on finances?
A couple things come to mind. With that view, you tend to be more available because you're not looking for the bigger, better deal or the next deal or the most profitable thing to the bottom line. You know where you are. You know your needs are met. You know that you know where the revenues are coming in. So you can afford to take risk on the relationships, which means being available or proactively reaching out. And with those two things, you get to know the heart of somebody. And when you know the heart of somebody, you know what's important to them. It goes way beyond the finances. And matter of fact, it's the non-financial things that will drive the financial. But really, it's pursuing the heart of the person. That's what it's all about.
That's cool. It's a good way of doing business.
Yeah, heck yeah. It's a lot
Of
more
course,
fun.
just doing life, right? That's just doing life.
And that's true. I think about that with parenting or with my spouse or my mom and dad. Like, aim for their heart. If you can aim for their heart, you'll probably be pretty successful.
Yeah.
Won't get it right every time, and on the times that I don't get it right, it's got to be hey, I'm sorry I didn't get that right, and have enough confidence and strength in who I am as a man to be able to say, hey, I just didn't get that right.
I think that's one thing I've learned from you throughout life is humility and being able to know when to apologize and being able to know when to listen and knowing that you're not the expert. That's something that I feel like I've done very well in business. Is I am not smart necessarily. I'm not the brightest. I'm not the but the one thing I've been able to do is find people that I trust and that elevate me, that run the podcast really well, Braden over there, or run the gym really well, Caitlin. They make me look like I know what I'm doing.
Well, yeah, you're hiring people who have awesome talent and passion for something,
right?
And so that always goes a long way. And I really think the safest thing a person can do is when they have that gut drive. Some might say it's a gut drive. I might say it's a spirit-led thing. But when you've got that going on and you're in tune with it, it may seem bats crazy to everybody else. But you know where it comes from. And that's probably the safest thing you could do. I was reminded of it today when I saw a friend of mine who recently left his employer to start up his own business gig. And he's in his 40s. And I said to him, hey, way to take a risk and get out there on your own. And he kind of looked at me like I was an idiot. And as soon as he gave me the look, I knew exactly what he was talking about. And what he was talking about was, hey, this really isn't a risk because this is what I'm supposed to do. And when you know that, and when you know that you're going to be provided for, that things work, then it'd be crazy not to step out and go for it.
Take the risk. That's not as you said, it's not even a risk at that point.
Exactly right.
Yeah. That's such a different view on life than most people have.
Oh, well, it's impossible for most people to have it because most people don't have any kind of passion or drive for anything. They've been going through the motions. I think one of the challenges of living in America is our economic prosperity has allowed us to reach for mediocrity. And, without having those convictions deep down. And saying, hey, you remember that dream you had as a kid when you were hanging out at your Uncle Bob's car lot, thinking, wow, this is a cool business he has. Maybe I'll have a business someday. Well, as an adult, it would be easy to look back and just think, oh, that was a childhood dream. I also wanted to be an IndyCar driver, Will. I'm not an IndyCar driver.
You're not Connor Daly.
No. Shout out to Connor Daly. That was a great podcast. I really enjoyed that just before the 500. But it does. It allows you to take courage and say, you know what? That has stuck with me from the time I was whatever. Or, I've always been interested in this. Or people tell me that I'm good at that. I'm going to go for it. Not many people ever do that.
How do you think people can find that or figure that out? Because I think a lot of people don't even know.
First step is just seeking wisdom. If you have wisdom, then you will have a foundation of courage. Because it takes like a truckload of courage to go out and say yes to I'm doing something that everyone else thinks that's crazy.
Yeah. Wisdom. Where do you find wisdom?
You ask for it. That's the greatest thing about it is you just ask for it. Yeah.
Well, and that's, I feel like you get surrounded by people as well as, a spiritual sense that is going to provide that for you.
Yeah, and it's transferable. That's the other really cool thing about relationships and people. And I love coming in here and working out because I pick up on the wisdom of other people who've gone through the fire with trials and errors, and maybe they've had great experiences that they're going to share with me, or they're going to say, that didn't work out so well. And I think back to this year as far as wisdom goes, and applicable wisdom, like actually like, okay, Doug, this is all nice Pollyannish talk, all that stuff, but what is actually like what works? And I think this year has been a very transformative year for me, and I'll give Caitlin all the credit for this, because she had the courage to start a nutrition program, and she's good at it. She's interested in it. She writes about it, but that doesn't mean that she had to do it. But she did. Why did she do it? Well, it helps people like me. I'm not even on I think she has some souped up program. I don't even know what that is.
That's the program with Nas. Yeah.
Is that what that is?
No.
Have you done the souped up program? Like where you count macros? I don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't even know what a macro is.
Don't know what a macro ingredient.
I don't even want to know what that is.
Your macro and your micro. We're going to educate you right now, Doug. You got macro ingredients. Your macro is your carbs, your fat, your protein, and your micro ingredients are all the little the vitamins and minerals that are in those larger macronutrients. So you got macro and micro.
Yeah, see, not interested. And you might be out there in podcast world. That might be your thing. I know probably is for Caitlin. I don't know.
Yeah,
it might be for you. I don't know. But for me, what I needed change, and I needed change quick because I'm getting old. And what Caitlin was able to do is say, hey, yeah, I can work with you. You don't have to be the person in here who's leading the scores on the scoreboard. If you want to feel better, here's the prescription.
Yeah.
And so wisdom is a lot of times it's found from buying wisdom. If you can buy wisdom, I buy Caitlin's program. Yeah. I'm in on it.
Well, that's capitalism, right? You
do something well, right? That too. I love that. But that's a key principle in life that I picked up from my friend Keith is buy wisdom.
Yeah.
And yeah, it might cost you a little bit of money, but is it ever worth it? And so with Caitlin, bought into her program. It took a while.
Yeah.
Because she had to reshape my thinking. And she was very gentle. She was graceful, because I was eating a lot of pizza. And
what was the other thing you like? Tostitos?
Well, I still do chips and salsa quite a bit. Caroline and Warner, my son Warner, we got a great garden and
make some homemade salsa.
Yeah, but even in February when we don't have a great garden, we're still making homemade salsa. So yeah, chips and salsa, I'm always in. But
we all got our thing.
But the point is through her wisdom, she basically helped me be stronger.
Yeah.
And be smarter. I was drinking, nothing against if you're drinking 8 Dr. Peppers a week I was.
All the things against that. That's a very bad, please stop.
Well, but there was a want to.
Sure.
That began to happen, and I needed wisdom, okay? I don't have the time to dive into this, nor do I even have the energy or want to start looking at websites and trying to figure things out on my own.
Well, your bandwidth is spread thin. You got 4 boys, you've got a wife, you got a business, in a complicated business at that.
Yeah, and so to buy wisdom is always a pro move. If you can narrow down what it is you're looking for, there's somebody out there with wisdom to give it to you.
Well, it's contracting out for life, right? I contract out marketing for the business because I can't do marketing. It just doesn't click with me. My brain doesn't work. So I hire somebody who has that skill set. Right?
Yeah.
Same thing with investing in yourself.
It tends to stack as well. So if you start getting traction and this is nothing new for anybody. You start getting traction in one area. Well, next thing you know, you got some traction in another because you say, hey, we've had some victories here.
Yeah.
And I want to stack another victory. What would another victory look like? Well, as I start to stack these victories, what's exciting for me personally is you start thinking beyond yourself. hey, I'm doing all right here, but what about one of my kids? What are they looking at next?
Yeah.
Like, what could be the next leap for them if we were to forecast out 13, 14 months?
Mm-hmm.
What big opportunities could they say yes to that would be excellent on their radar?
Yeah.
Or what are some things that are just flat out good that we're doing that we need to stop?
Yeah.
And if we have some good stuff going on and we stop doing them, then they have time to focus in on what's really, really excellent in their lives.
That's good. You got a lot of wisdom. You know that?
Yeah, it's because I bought it all.
Right. One thing you'll notice about Doug is if you get to talk to him in person, Doug's a very wise man. Not to inflate his ego or anything, but I think a lot of that comes from your partner too, right?
Yeah.
Because he's spoken a lot of wisdom into you.
Yeah, I'd say I actually keep a list. It's on my phone. I have a couple trophies I'm really proud of, and they're list.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a wisdom list. It's called that.
The wisdom list.
I
like it.
And that's important to have that because when it hits the fan,
Yeah.
and you don't have your wits about yourself, for me, I can just pull up my phone and say, "Oh, call Don.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I should reach out to Don on this one. He might know something about that." And so to have a wisdom list is a pro move. The other trophy that I have that is a list is I have a list of, and I call it coffee shop people. And it's everyone I've ever met at a coffee shop.
How many people are on that list at this point?
Goodness, I don't know. I showed it to our friend Parker the other day, and he's on the list.
Wait, Parker was there the other day?
Yeah.
Oh, I miss Parker. I haven't seen him recently.
I don't know, Will. There might be, I don't know if there's 70 or 100, but there's a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We meet a lot of people in the coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We almost have our own community there.
Well, and it's not hard because what happens is someone might introduce someone else to us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we're like walking around with our business cards, like
Hey, how you doing today?
slinging
Right.
them at people. It's an introduction.
Yeah.
And those introductions, some of them turn into friendships.
Yeah. I've talked to people about, starting a new business or, finding people to do, certain things for them. And I'm like, go sit in a coffee shop for a month. Every day for a month. Go there for like an hour in the morning. You'll meet people. And it's so cool because like Rivet here and Indie Coffee Roasters are the two spots we frequent the most. And, they've been great places to just, and not intentionally. Like when I'm there doing work or when I'm there reading, I don't necessarily want to talk to people, but it just happens. You bump into people. Some people come up and are like, I see you here a lot. What do you do?
That's inspiring.
It is. Yeah.
Like I walked into the coffee shop today, and there was a guy that is on the list, and I just said hello to him. Nothing else.
Right.
But he comes in and he reads a book to his daughter.
Oh, that's cool.
And they've been doing it for like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I walk in and I see stuff like that. I'm inspired.
Yeah.
I'm inspired. It helps me pump up my day, and I can carry that along with me to the next phone call or to the next meeting, or just to reflect back on, hey, what are things I could be doing with my sons?
Yeah.
Am I available for them? And so you see just great life happening at the coffee shop. But you also see great customer service at a local coffee shop because they've got to earn it every day.
Yeah. When Doug says local coffee shop, we're not talking Starbucks.
Yeah, and there are folks who work at Starbucks who are the entrepreneurial people.
Sure.
They are the people who know your name, and it's more than just a mobile app order.
Mm-hmm.
And so the invisible's the best. It is just the best. Like, you never know what someone is thinking about.
Right.
It could be that barista at the Starbucks, and sees you walking in, and she notices that your countenance has changed. You're looking sad or whatever, and hey, behind the scenes, she might be praying for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so these relationships that you run across in your local community, whatever you're doing, if you're going to Hardee's, I went to Hardee's for a little while.
Gosh.
Whatever you're doing, that can make a big difference in just your day and what you can.
Yeah. Well, it's personal interaction, right? And
That's
an important piece in life that we have less and less of. I mean, especially with people working from home. You know, if I did not work in the gym, and then I'd be working from home, and if I didn't go to a coffee shop like I do, I would not see a person during the day.
Yeah. So there's a few great ideas for people who are working from home, or maybe you've recently graduated from college, or maybe you've just moved to Indianapolis or to a new location and you don't have community. I would encourage you to get out there, and that could be the coffee shop, that could be a gym. Gym's a great place to meet people and to dig a little deeper.
Yeah. Well, and meet people that are bettering themselves, right?
Yeah.
That's an important piece too, is surrounding yourself with people that are, the top 5 people, or the top 5 people you hang around the most, or who you're like.
Yeah, it's something like that.
I don't think I said that right,
I think that's true statement.
Yeah. So get around people that want to grow, and in a coffee shop, you get around a lot of people that are very optimistic, which is really cool. There's a reason. There's a reason they're there.
I mean, they're up and at 'em in the morning.
Exactly. So, Doug, what legacy do you want to leave?
Well, so success to me is basically just lifing out that kind of gut-stirring prompt from deep inside. And so I will have a successful life if I can keep doing that. I think the big wins in life have come from that. And so the legacy effect would be just to keep going, keep trusting. When an idea goes across my brain waves, it's for my mind to take control of it and say, hey, is that really a great idea, or is it just a good one? And if I can latch on to those really great ideas and be inspired by those, then the legacy effect will be awesome. It'll be generational. And I'll empower my boys, my friends, maybe someone here in the gym to just have a better life. And so it's not much else than that, except to just keep enjoying those promptings, to be able to hear them out and to listen, and then to go for it.
What would be one piece of advice or something you'd tell people listening to this?
Slow down. I met a guy on an airplane. His name's Bryce. Hey, Bryce. And Bryce, just one of the coolest dudes ever. He was Green Beret. And we had a long airplane ride. And we just started talking.
Where were you flying to?
I can't even remember.
Flying from, yeah.
But he was living in Carmel for a time period, and so we hung out afterwards. And he told me that, and this is probably no secret to anybody, but he said, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. It's
a great quote.
Yeah, and that applies to a lot of things in your life. And so I would encourage you, if I could just give you one piece of advice, slow down. And when you slow down, or when the thing's not in front of your face, whatever, you'll be able to hear what you need to be listening to. And then you'll trust it, and you'll experiment with it.
Yeah.
You might take courage with it, take some action with it. You might start to see some results with it that you really like. But none of that happens unless you slow down.
That leads me to another question.
It's the most active thing you can do is to slow down.
Well, it takes a lot of intention to be able to do that.
It's not lazy.
Yeah.
People say to me all the time, and it is somewhat true, I am a laid-back person. I really am. I can go from 2 to 10 pretty quick at times, but
we've seen that on your stress score on your Garmin.
Oh yeah,
yeah. We looked at that, and I was blown away at how low Doug's stress levels are. They're in like the low all the time. There's not, sleep score is good, his stress levels are low. I'm like, man, mine's like spiked half of my life.
I thought that was so funny. I mean, I don't know how well this watch does that.
It works pretty well.
Okay.
It works pretty well.
But people say to me all the time, oh, well, that works for you because you're laid back. And hey, let's face it, there is some truth to that.
Sure.
If the chemicals firing around or you're battling some anxiety and some tough stuff, it's a little more challenging to get who you are and your earth suit, your body to kind of flow together. But really, I think the most active thing a person can do is slow down. If you can actively have peace in your life, you will have room for courageous things.
It's a good word to end on.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on today, bro.
I enjoyed it.
Me too. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.